Welcome to Behind the Title. I was delighted to welcome Bianca Best, entrepreneur, leader, and author, to come and talk about some of the tips that she uses to help overcome burnout. She talks about some of these in her latest book, and I'm really excited that she came to share some of that with us today.
It's fantastic to be here having a conversation about being behind the title, because I've certainly spent many, many years experiencing that performative mask that all too often we put on to survive and succeed in a corporate environment. The polished exterior of hitting KPIs is not without, inevitably, a lot of private work and experiences that take a lot of self-management to get to a place of soaring and thriving.
Bianca, welcome to Behind the Title. Thank you so much for joining me. It's amazing to have you here, someone of your experience and your background. I guess for the people that are listening that don't know who you are, it'd be great if you could just give maybe a 60, 90-second intro to you, and I guess really why being part of today was important to you, because I'm always eager to understand, what's the draw for people to come and be a contributor and a guest on this show.
Well, thank you, Danny. Thank you so much for having me here on the show and for actually stepping into this really raw, truthful moment that I really do fully support. Why am I here? I'm here because I care so much. I care about what you're doing. And my own experience has got me to a place where I believe truth needs to be told, and we need to encourage and inspire others to ensure that they are walking their paths in integrity. So who am I? So I am an author, I'm a speaker, and an entrepreneur, a former global executive in our industry. So I have spent time in both independents and large holdcos. So I've had time at Dentsu, at WPP, and most recently at Publicis. So I have a very interesting background in that it's varied in terms of an entrepreneurial focus on finding my own way, in terms of learning corporate late and coming in without experience of having climbed a steady linear ladder. And I'm a burnout survivor. So I have learnt the hard way how to recover from burnout. And what we'll talk about today is how my mission is to eliminate the global burnout epidemic that the world is suffering with. I run a clinic, I run a business called The Burnout Business, I write books, I consult with organizations on how we can get into the heart and meat of businesses to shift the culture so we get into thriving organizations where individuals feel empowered to avoid burnout and to show up as themselves and do work that brings them joy. I'm a fully certified therapist in all sorts of integrative therapies, from coaching to nutritional therapy to energy management, energy coaching. I'm about to start a 4-year healing science degree where I'm going deep into the anatomy and how we can ensure that we are mind, body, soul thriving.
We got introduced, and I'm surprised we didn't meet at our time at a mutual organization. When we first spoke, it felt very comfortable. It felt like kindred spirits. And you talk about that kind of energy piece there. Like it's a big part of my MO, right? Is what I stand for. Before we dive in, I'm eager to know two questions. Like, what motivates you every day to kind of, I guess, continually push the barriers to help people? And what's the part of what you're doing at the moment that you love the most? Because there's quite a lot there that you talked about. Like, what really kind of gets you up in the morning and you're like, wow, I love that part of it?
I am super impassioned by the power and the potential that each and every one of us holds. I believe that you have gifts, talents, skills, and the right to sprinkle them out into the world. And I am seeing too much compromise where individuals are shrinking themselves to fit into some warped ideology of what success looks like. And there's this world of polarities that's bubbling up where I'm meeting women in my clinic who feel it's either a career or a family. They don't believe that they can do both. I'm meeting men in my clinic who feel they don't want a promotion because they don't want to take on any more. And there's this absolute fear that more responsibility is going to break people. And because of my own experience and my own path of actually navigating burnout and leaning into ambition, but actually falling over a lot along the way, I've learnt now how you can absolutely seize your dreams. You can absolutely step into your best self. But nobody teaches us how to do this at school. So what motivates me every single day is actually teaching the world how to learn to work again and to step out of this realm of frenetic productivity and step into a place of graceful productivity. Because I actually believe it's possible. I'm exemplifying it. I've never been so productive in my life, and yet I'm not burning out. So I'm so motivated to try and teach this at scale. And if you, as you've just asked, where do I get my energy from? It's actually watching that transformation happen. It's individuals in my clinic. It's people reading my book and messaging me and saying, you've changed my life. I've just made a decision. I'm not compromised anymore. And suddenly I'm thriving. And that is just, it's magic. And so the more I can sprinkle that magic out into the world, the better.
The observation I see is that, because I'm a prime candidate, right? I absolutely love my job. My other half she might use a few choice words around how much I give to my job, but I love it. I enjoy it. I'm passionate. And I wouldn't say I've reached a point of burnout. I'm no way near, because what I am really good at is spotting the signs and the signals when enough is enough, or I need to take a step back and pause.
Right.
I think it's a real difficult skill to be able to learn, and trying to understand what are those signals. And that probably brings me to my first question, which is, I talk about it quite a lot, like the backstage pass, you know, and was there a moment in your personal or professional life, you know, the two are obviously entwined, where actually outwardly everything was great. You know, you had the material, you had the you know, all that sort of stuff. But actually inwardly, maybe you were crumbling. What, you know, was there a specific moment that you spotted, or did someone spot that for you?
No, it was a very big, pretty catastrophic moment in my life. So preparing for this interview today and bearing in mind, I write about my own experiences, but preparing for this interview today took me into the recollection of a very, very bleak, deep, dark place in my life. And it was very much a moment where I was presenting polished, happy, delivering Bianca, but inside it was definitely the lowest point for me. So it's a bit of a long story, but I'll give you the context. So
we've got time, so just you know, as you go.
I think it's important for listeners to understand the backstory. And what's important is that, yes, it was a bleak moment, a low point for me, but actually it was the most transformative growth moment. It was the moment I needed. And I think that's an important lesson for us all to learn, that in those moments of darkness, quite often there's an escape that actually becomes a moment where you soar and you come out of the struggle. So this was a period where I had launched, run and sold my own business. So like I said, I was an entrepreneur for a decade, and that was very much me learning how to work and realizing I could have impact and just making it up every day. I had a great ride, really fun. Then I'd fallen into corporate, which also seemed fun and different. But I, at that point, was a woman in my early 30s entering corporate for the first time. And I came with the confidence and self-assuredness that I'd literally launched a business from the seeds of an idea right through to growing an omni-channel personalized gift business that I'd sold. So I knew I could trust myself. I knew how to work, how to achieve, how to have impact. And I had done that whilst raising my young family. I had 4 children under 7. And
four under 7 and you launched the business. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
just to be clear, I've got one and I share that one with another parent and it's hard.
It's fun, but it was motivating. But across that period of entrepreneurialism and raising the family, I did keep cyclically burning out. So I was chasing ambitions, fueled by what was exciting every day, but I didn't know how to self-manage because we don't learn this at school. So I'd been learning a lot about how to actually function, achieve the impact, raise the family and keep going. And then I find myself falling into corporate. I'm now in a totally alien environment and I'm having fun because it's exciting, it's new, it's different, but nothing was familiar. And I'm in an arena where the majority of my colleagues have done the linear path, come out of school, university, come into corporate. So they've got over a decade of experience of being in this environment. They've got the mentors. They've learned how to play the politics, how to play the game. And this was totally new and alien to me. So whilst I was excited by it, I was also very apprehensive and nervous and working out, how do I show up in this environment? I'm a firm believer in take an opportunity, and if you don't know how to do it, just learn it on the job. Just that's how we grow. So I'd come into this corporate arena and I donned a mask because I had an image of, well, this is Bianca in corporate. So I cut a fringe. I was wearing a lot of black. I was just trying to be the perfect corporate girl. And because I didn't really know or have any points of reference, it was all just stumbling and fumbling my way around. But my very natural, good girl, people-pleasing side of my personality was what popped up to the fore. So I was Little Miss. I will do everything I possibly can to make sure I hit my KPIs and I surprise and delight my managers, my colleagues. And part of me delivering in terms of that performative aspect of work is also how I show up. So I'm very much of the mindset that I want to look the part as well. So in moments of real test, I will almost over-index on how do I manage myself. That's what I'd learned through my burnouts during entrepreneurialism. So I was extra fit. I was doing extra meditation, extra journaling, all the stuff that I had learned to keep me functioning in the world. I was bringing into this new corporate environment so that I could just bring my best self. But of course, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of effort. That's a lot of getting up and doing a run at 5 a.m. and then at 6 a.m. making sure I'm putting the makeup on and curling the hair, then doing the 2-hour commute to try and get into the office and be the early bird.
You missed out probably looking after 4 kids during that time as well.
The 4 kids as well, exactly. But in that environment, that particular time, I was working in an organisation where the pace of growth was unprecedented. We were growing 30% year on year. So the expectations internally were super, super intense. Yeah. So for me, in my people pleasing, okay, I'm going to show up and I'm going to deliver, this was extra pressure, extra competitiveness, I'd say, in the actual landscape. Everyone was at their desks at 7:30, 8 in the morning, and I wanted to be there too. So I'm putting myself under all this pressure to show up and be this corporate Bianca, not realising the emotional stress and the strain that that's putting me under. So I'm doing it. I'm ticking the KPIs. I'm part of the board. I am absolutely making my mark. At home, the kids are happy. They're okay. We're keeping this world spinning. At that particular point in time, we had decided to move home. I never do things by halves. So we were massively up-leveling where we lived. We were moving from a small semi-detached cottage into a giant 100-year-old mansion. And when I say it was a project, it was a project. There was a derelict swimming pool, derelict tennis court, acres of land, and it was, for me, a dream. My poor then ex-husband, not so much a dream, but along he came with the kids, could see the vision. So we had planned to move. We had a 2-week period where we were I was taking time off work to actually focus on the upheaval of moving children into this home. As you can imagine, maintaining my role, my significant senior board level role in the day job, took a lot of balancing at home. It was a blend of childcare, of me focusing on the kids in the home, my ex-husband focusing on the kids in the home, and it was a jiggle-juggle. We were literally hanging on by a thread. 2 weeks before we're due to move, and I've got this 2-week period of how we're going to move and settle into this mansion. The lovely au pair that had been part of our lives for a significant amount of time announced on Monday, she said, I'm leaving, I want to go back to Canada and I'm off. And she left the next day. So without any pre-warning, I've suddenly lost one of the very, very major rocks that keep my life swirling. So then, as we approached the move date, I was spending 2 weeks coming home from work, getting off the train, meeting and interviewing candidates for the childminder role in the pub, literally by the train station, interviewing desperately trying to solve this big crisis. And of course, it fell to me to make sure I would find the right candidate. I'm getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, going on au pair sites, trying to find if there's anyone. I knew I had to fix this problem. So I did it. Somehow I found someone who agreed that they would start the day after we moved in, because move day was crunch day. On that day, my mum was going to have the 4 kids. We were going to move in. The childminder would start the next day. And then we'd have the 2 weeks off to renovate the house and get settled. During that period, my husband and I sadly decided that the relationship was not working and that it was time for us to address the big elephant in the room and get divorced. So we were going through the most brutal conversations that we'd had in our 20-year relationship at that time as well. So our lives were literally unraveling in such a significant way. We were just saying, okay, we'll move into this house, we'll sleep in separate bedrooms, and we will just manage this period and work out what divorce looks like. So if you think about what is identified as the most stressful points in life, it's death, it's divorce, it's moving. So I'm now dealing with divorce and moving on top of this very, very stressful job. The day comes, we're moving into this house, and it's very intense. And I'm sure you know that actual moving date, the legalities and all the stuff that goes on and on and on. It took hours. It's 4 p.m. We still haven't actually got the keys to get into this house. We've now got the removal van saying, wow, an extra £50 an hour per van. And I know the clock is ticking. And we finally get into the house, and we're just trying to unpack boxes, find, what are the things that we need before it's night time. 10 p.m. removal people have gone. We sit down. We have ordered pizzas. We sit down to eat pizzas, and I look at my phone. I have an email from work saying, because it's the impending Christmas campaigns, my annual leave shouldn't have been signed off. I'm not allowed 2 weeks. I can only have 1 week. I need to be in the office the following Monday. So this is Monday. So I've suddenly lost my 2-week window of stabilising me and my family has cut down to now 1 week. The next email I read is from the childminder. Sadly, she's had a crisis and she's got to move up north immediately. Her father was ill. She couldn't start either. So I've now lost the security I had that in the morning the childminder would arrive. I now know I've only got 7 days to stabilise my home, my family, sort childcare. And in that moment, the just overwhelm of the job, the performing, the being this boardroom Bianca, being the mother Bianca, being the wife Bianca, being the sorter-outer of everybody's world. It came crashing down on me in such a way. I've never collapsed like I collapsed in that moment. I literally crumbled. I went to the floor and I just started crying and crying and crying in the fetal position. Like, I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. I felt so broken. My poor ex-husband, who's, things have been fraught between us anyway. And he's like, are you okay? I couldn't speak. Inconsolable, inconsolable. I got myself up to a mattress on a floor somewhere and found a duvet, pulled it over my head, and I went to sleep absolutely sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. I didn't know how I was going to get my way out of this new level of pressure. It just felt unprecedented. And that really was the lowest I've ever been, emotionally, physically, mentally. I was just utterly broken. I slept. The next morning, I'm on a mission, organised Bianca, okay, project one, find childcare immediately. My amazing dad says, I'm coming, I'll move in, I'm going to help you. Project two, acknowledge the fact I've got to be in the office next Monday. Okay, so I can't decorate that room, unbox that room, cut from the plan. And I start getting myself back together. I get on with it. And the next Monday morning, I'm 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm in the boardroom. I'm polished. I'm in my suit. I've spent the Sunday night going through the numbers. And there I am. I'm delivering. I've got answers for everything for the CEO. I can explain everything. And so I show up. Now, nobody in that room, in that boardroom, knew that just 7 days prior, I'd been in the fetal position, just literally thinking, I can't do this anymore. And for me, that was such a moment of actually realizing only I could change quite how desperate and forlorn I'd felt in that moment. And that all the work I'd done previously, experimenting with how to manage burnout and manage my ambition, and where I'd started to modify things, where I felt more physically in control, I felt more mentally in control. What I'd never actually done is the work on emotional stress. And that for me was the turning point. And that was really where I started all my work around training, around inspiring others and teaching others how to address emotional unrest. Because I was in an unhappy culture, I was in an unhappy marriage, I had too much on my shoulders, and only I could actually change that. So I stepped into a place of empowerment, realised I was just in the wrong cultural environment. The pressure was wrong. It was wrong for me. And I started to make decisions to change. And that is what has empowered me through the past decade or so. And I can honestly say I've never felt that forlorn again. And I've never burnt out again, literally never burnt out again, because I absolutely honour the emotional integrity that I need to sustain. So it took that bleak, low moment for me to then come out and actually recognise what it is, what the key is to actually thriving at work. I took that mask off. I started to become more me. I got my control back, my power back, my inner power, and life got a whole lot better.
Wow. Thank you for being so honest. I think it's hard enough to be honest with your nearest and dearest, but to sit in a room with arguably what I guess you could call me a stranger, we've met, only a couple of times, and to be so honest. And I think that's what this is all about, right? Exactly. Was there a moment, and it could have been, again, personal, professional, shit you wish you had said? Like, so whether that was, with your husband at that point, or whether it was walking to that boardroom, or was there another time in crisis in the workplace where something happened either for you or someone else where you could have spoken up but you didn't? Yeah,
no, it's a great question. There's a couple of examples. One was where I was asked to get into the office at 7:30 in the morning, and I come in early for this meeting with the CEO and the chief of staff, and they take me into this meeting room, shut the door behind them, and they ask why I formed a relationship with the global CEO, who was a woman. And they said to me, we've noticed you've been speaking to her. What are you speaking to her about? You don't need to talk to her about that. You talk to us. We don't want you discussing anything that's going on in this agency with that particular person. And like I say, I'm learning to play the game. I didn't know that was totally, these two men should not have put me in that situation and had that conversation. And they obviously felt threatened. And so in that moment, I was just silly, naive, little subservient me, just going, oh, I'm so sorry. She was just offering to mentor me. And so we've become friends. And, I didn't know that was a sin. But I wish I wish that I had gone into that meeting with the knowledge of this is how corporate works, with the knowledge that, of course, I can have conversations and relationships with anyone in an organization, especially senior leaders who I can learn from, and that nobody has the right to say who I can and can't have relationships with. So I wish that I had known that and argued my place instead of just being little Miss People Pleaser as I was. And then the other example is in a boardroom meeting where I was trying to make a point and a man actually put his hand over my mouth and said, shh. Yeah. 3 of us in this meeting.
That's astonishing.
Yeah. But again, at the time, it was a heated discussion and I was expressing something that clearly didn't. And
was the action in a jovial way? As in, did you have a warm relationship and therefore the person, or was it in a...
Yeah, we were close because we were both very senior leaders together, working very closely to address a business agenda, and close enough for him to feel like he could just be like, shh.
But still.
Yeah. I think back in retrospect, why I didn't go, what are you doing? But I didn't react because I didn't know that I had the right to say, that's wrong. And there's me as a 35-year-old woman letting somebody silence me, literally, physically.
It's mad because, you talk about kind of having access, I remember one of my CEOs, I think they joined a business and I'd basically messaged them 4 weeks after they joined, just saying, hey, it'd be great to meet.
Yeah.
I don't think I said it like this, but I'd observed something and love to chat to them about it.
Yeah.
And we joke about it now because they still say to me, I remember that first email you sent. Because I'm a firm believer of you should be able to access anyone in your organization.
Yeah.
I have connected and been in conversation with my current global CEO about potentially being involved in an event before with us. Now, a lot of people be like, how dare you? Not how dare you, but wow, what? And I'm like, well, it's just one email to another email, to another email.
Well, that's how we grow, right? Isn't it? There's new value and we connect with each other.
I just feel like I want to empower people to know that it's okay to not be okay. Yeah. It's okay to speak up. It's okay to call me out if I've not necessarily done something
absolutely
right. And I've had those conversations before, not in anything in a serious way. But I might have had a disagreement with someone and they said I didn't feel comfortable. I'm so sorry. Yeah. That was not my intention.
Absolutely.
And so I need to create the conditions. We all need to create the conditions to allow people
to be able to
have a voice.
Well, it's that psychological safety, isn't it? And inviting your team to know that they can comment. So that's how I used to run my weekly team meetings. It was always a very open invitation, critique me. Yeah. Because that's how we learn and grow, and feedback is a gift, and let's have this fluidity of helping each other become better.
I think I struggled a couple of years ago with that whole phrase of feedback is a gift, because every time I have a career conversation or a 360, the same thing comes up consistently, but it's not in a negative way because I'm slowly eroding at it, and I'm more aware. So how I carry and hold myself. But in my early career, it was like, oh God.
You just took it, you felt
just these people, you read through and then you try and discern who said what. And you're like, maybe. And it's like, it's just you have to read it and apply it as a blanket to everything that you do.
Yeah.
But often I found that my behaviors in the workplace, and you might be able to identify with this, there was normally a trigger.
Yeah.
There was normally something which made me behave, act, communicate in a certain way. Are there specific triggers that you either think are quite generic for just people in the workplace, or are there personal triggers that really kind of pushed you to either make bad decisions or push past that point where you achieved that burnout? Yeah. Sometimes being aware of what those triggers are, I think, is really important for people.
I think you're right, but quite often the triggers bubble up and slap you in the face and you suddenly realise you're experiencing something that's triggering you. We all struggle with loneliness. Loneliness is something that, we know that actually actually it's more likely to kill you than obesity, actually. It's that harrowing a statistic. But loneliness in the workplace is something that fascinates me from a sociological perspective, but also really disheartens me because it just shouldn't happen. But in my experience of the past 10, 12 years in corporate, I've seen how it's possible for teams to be really fostering a culture of loneliness. Even very, very recently, me as a mature lady who knows how to navigate life and has a lot of friends and knows how to create good, strong relationships, I've observed myself feeling lonely at work. And that's a very painful place to be, and it doesn't need to be. And so I've always looked at it and thought, well, why is this happening? Because I've had periods where I've been running global teams. I mean, goodness, during lockdown, where we were properly disconnected from each other for almost 18 months, in that period, I never felt lonely. I still had this vibrant connection with the team. And then I've had periods where we're in the office but feeling very lonely. And I really think that that comes down to a lack of connected purpose, but also a lack of humanness and of seeing each other wholly. And that's something that matters so much to me because I believe that leaders, our responsibility is to bring the infectiousness of positive relational energy. I mean, it's been proven in Harvard study after study that positive relational energy is what it takes to drive a motivated workforce. If you have leaders that are not interested in the people, that they want machine-like productivity, you are alienating people in such a way where they start to shrink. So I've observed, to your question around the triggers, if I've felt triggered in that way where I'm unseen and disconnected from colleagues that I'm working with, despite sitting in an office, despite sitting in a busy, bustling office where everyone's come back to work, but I'm not feeling a connection or that anyone actually sees me and who I am, then I notice the behavior that I have becomes shrunk.
Yeah. I noticed that actually the triggers are this is the right word, self-imposed. So I used to find earlier in my career, I'd come in, I'd have my headphones in and I'd leave them in and it was a sign of just, I don't want to talk to you. Yeah. And it wasn't a point of, hierarchical, trying to impose myself. I just didn't want to talk to anyone. Yeah. I felt like I just want to keep my headphones in and leave me till 10 o'clock, right? Yeah. And I think that is really important. And I talk to my team about it. I'm like, when there's an appropriate moment, keep them in. But when there's lots of people around, it's really important that you create the openness for someone to be part of you. And I remember interviewing someone for a role. And I was at home. I think, cooking food for my stepson, Harry. Yeah. I don't know, it's fish fingers, chips, peas, whatever. Yeah. I think I was like, Harry, what do you want? And, be down in 5 minutes, whatever it was. And we joke about it because that person found it bizarre. We work together now. We have an incredibly strong relationship. But it is that humanness, right? Because I believe it's about disarming people, letting people know, I'm driven and I have purpose and I'm focused and I want to achieve. But that human connection, you have to create it. You have to foster it. At the same time, those triggers, I think you can create them. It can be hard to recognize them sometimes. And you talked about it before, fetal position, being curled up. Did you stand yourself in front of a mirror or something and have a chat with yourself? Did you, proper pep talk, Bianca?
Well, I have always been obsessed with personal development. And I think that's why I've been able to achieve success from very early on in my career, because I've always been very self-aware. I have journaled since I was 8 years old. And
you still have all of
I still have all of them, stacks and stacks of them in the loft, and I still regularly journal. And so I've always had that self-reflection. And what I teach in the mastery of self comes from having that deep self-awareness and making the time to self-reflect. And this is where a lot of us get swept downstream and we become passive because life's happening to us. And part of the sustaining success with grace is around really being subjective with attention, where you're directing your attention. Because if you don't direct it, the world will, and it'll be stolen from you. And then you start to slide into, damn, I'm busy. And, this never-ending task list is never going to end. But it's up to you to decide where you're going to focus your attention and connecting that into what gives you most energy and what gives you the buzz. So I've always been very self-reflective, and throughout my cyclical burnouts during running the bespoke gift company, the personalized gift business, because I kept leaning into all my ambitions, and I believe in reaching for the stars, and I don't believe ambition's a dirty word, and we've all got the right to just seize our dreams. But because I realised actually seizing my dreams, I'm really breaking myself. I'd spent a lot of time trying to hone and manage myself physically. Okay, got to have a different relationship with sleep. I need to exercise mentally. Okay, more meditation, journaling. But it was that sort of emotional piece. So yes, I looked in the mirror at that really broken moment the next day of just...
Metaphorically or an actual mirror?
I do believe in the mirror stuff. So there's a lot of sort of spiritual gurus, whether we go back to the Louise Hay realm of affirmations, but looking yourself in the eye is incredibly stirring, especially if you've disconnected from self. So I'm already very self-aware, but for a lot of people, a lot of my clients, they are not necessarily. And so that moment of intimacy with self, where you do look yourself in the eye, absolutely stirs the soul, because any protective mask that has been donned literally falls away, and there's a rawness. And I certainly have clients who, when they go through that exercise of gazing at themselves softly, compassionately, lovingly in the mirror, they cry, because it's a memory of this is who I am. This is my soulful self. And too many of us, especially in corporate, have got armor on. That's that protective personality. And that's actually exhausting us and taking us too far away from the soulful self. So part of my mirror experience was waking up to emotional unrest and starting to trust this flow of intuitive energy. When you feel a niggle, when you feel that something's not quite right, you're absolutely onto something. And it's about leaning into those niggles and going, well, what's there? What can I do to remedy this? Because a niggle is a stirring from the soul. So really learning to trust my intuition as a guiding force, and what the energetic vibes feel like is absolutely transformational for me, my clients, and I believe for all of us.
Yeah, I have a routine that I carry out every day, which is every morning I pause for, it's about 10 minutes where I just sit. I gather my thoughts for the day. Right. I play some guided meditation.
Perfect.
And I have a word with, myself just around slow down, don't chase, keep my side of the street clean. Just really try to, I guess, ground myself before I go out into the day and either cause chaos or bring calm. Like, what can I give rather what I can take. And,
Perfect.
And then at night time, I tend to reflect. I tend to write down, the things that I'm grateful for. Yeah. But at the same time, if I've not been right in how I've carried out my day, what do I need to course correct? What do I need to address? And I think I wish I could bottle it and give it to people, because I think sometimes it just builds up and up and up, and then you have to have the mirror moment. Yeah. You have to be, have to like just shake yourself. And I'm like, it doesn't need to be like that, because actually I can, spot things in the moment rather than letting them drag on. But I know that's easier said than done.
It should be a priority. Yeah. That self-awareness, it's the most important thing. It's the oxygen mask on first. And if you don't start there with yourself, how are you ever going to expect the outer to ever be any kind of different reality? So congratulations for doing that.
No.
And, lead by example. Tell your team. This morning in my morning reflection, lead by example. Tell them, we did that meeting, and on reflection, I think we could have managed it this way. Keep that conversation, reflective conversations, keep it going.
I'm definitely an advocate, but it was funny you just said there, tell them about your morning reflections. I felt, can I do that? Just is that a comfortable place to be? It's actually given me food for thought. Like, could I be giving my team a positive affirmation for the day, rather than think cringy about it. But
and that reaction, that resistance, that niggle, there's gold there. Yeah. So lean into that, because that's what you need to do next. And then you're going to grow, and then your leadership will become more impactful.
Amazing. Before we close out, I want to ask one question, and this is really pertinent, I think, for anyone that's listening to this. I want to make sure that we give people permission. Yeah. Permission to speak up, permission to reach out for help, permission for support when they need it. You know, is there something that you would say to people? Is there a permission slip you would give to people, make them feel more empowered, make them feel more encouraged to either improve or change or better how they carry themselves in the workplace if they want to grow and develop and succeed?
Well, you're asking an author who's on a book tour. So of course
we're going to come to that in a second.
Buy the book. But it's a very, very simple life principle. And it is follow your bliss. So Joseph Campbell, if you haven't read his historic book, it looks at mythology and the correlation between psychological and spiritual evolution and how we can find joy. And it's around following our bliss, because when we follow our bliss, the universe opens doors that we wouldn't previously have assumed will open. And when we become more comfortable following our bliss, following what excites us most, and being in an energized state of, that's fun, that's interesting, I'm curious about that, and we don't let ourselves be consumed by fear and anxiety and all that, I can't, but we follow our bliss, life just expands beautifully, and it's so much more fun.
Tell us about the book. Like, what can we expect to read or what can we expect to take from it when we read it?
Well, it's 8 strategies around how we go from struggling to soaring, and really it's a recipe guide for how to learn to work again. None of us have learnt how to cope with our lives expanding, and this is 8 simple strategies to get to a place where we go within, to really understand what our inner foundations look like and how we solidify ourselves so we're grounded, we're powerful, we're intentional, we're energized, what that inner work looks like. So then we go forth and go out into the world and have this gorgeous expansion phenomenon, as I call it, where our work is abundant and bolder and brighter, where our relationships and connections deeper, and we learn how to treasure the important people in our lives or build our networks, where wealth is redefined and we actually understand what success looks like and ultimately how we can get to a place of fulfillment by honouring our integrity.
And just so personal, how does it take to write a book? Because I've always thought to myself, I'd love to write a book, but I just struggle to write.
Well, maybe that's not your thing.
No,
I mean,
but you know.
I love writing, and this I've written several books, but this is definitely a assimilation of decades and decades of learning, of research, of experience, and of a lot of holistic training. So this particular book, I mean, I got the book deal in summer 2023, and it was published in March 2025. So there's a very long lead.
Oh, wow, yeah.
But I'd say it took me around 6 months of focused effort to write the book.
And available, I assume?
It's available everywhere books are sold.
Amazing. Bianca, thank you so much for joining today. Like, it's been a pleasure to have you. Someone who's, I guess, had a seasoned career that you've had. I didn't realize it when we first spoke, but whilst our journeys are, or perhaps our careers have been different, we actually went on a similar journey, because I had a business of my own before I joined the corporate world, and I felt exactly the same you did, and it's been fairly similar since. So I feel like maybe by chance you're sitting in this chair to just give me a little bit of a reckoning as to what I need to be doing over the next 3, 5, 7 years to make sure that I can maintain and still grow without burning out. So,
well, you're clearly here exemplifying how to take a look under the hood, and a show like this is a magnificent step in the right direction to inspire others, and you're doing all the right things. And thank you so much for inviting me onto the sofa today.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me, and get the book at every available outlet that it is. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.